So welcome back again. Now we move into July 2016 for our themes based on the principles, the visions, and the absolute values of what our organizational teaching is about. And July, the whole month, is based on loving kindness and forgiveness. The first service that we have comes from Reverend Michelle Inglis from Grants Pass Centers for Spiritual Living, and it's for July 3rd. We see a worldwide culture in which forgiveness, whether for errors, injustices, or debts, is the norm. Reverend Michelle writes, God knows only its wholeness, completeness, and perfection, and knows all of humankind as whole, complete, and perfect. God knows nothing to forgive. Forgiveness is a human process by which we move from the idea of our separation from God or good into a recognition of our unity with that same God or good. Forgiveness is a shift in consciousness from fear to love. It moves us out of victimhood into a recognition that life always supports us. Holmes, in The Science of Mind, wrote, "We should never hesitate to say that we know the truth, because we do, for the realization of the unity of God and humankind is the truth. We simply need a greater realization of this. How are we to get it? Only by penetrating deeper and deeper into our own divine nature, pushing further and further back into the beautiful infinite." And then he adds in another line, "Why should it disturb anyone to be told that God knows nothing of his sin, nothing of his want, nothing of his lack of any kind? The tragedy would be if God did know. If God knew sin, he would be a sinner, for what the infinite mind knows must be. Sin or mistakes are outside of the province of reality." July 10th is once again gifted to us by Dr. David Bruner. And Dr. David says that forgiveness is not simply an event. It's a paradigm. It's a way of being. And then another quote from Dr. Holmes. "We should do well to remember this lesson. How often we condemn when we should forgive. How often censure when we might praise. What untold grief of heart might be relieved by words of cheer and forgiveness. It's a way for us to be able to transform the world by acting and modeling the principles that we hold to be true. And remembering that the Spirit holds no evil towards anyone and that God is love, we should emulate this divine lesson and forgive all, that our hearts may be free from the burden of our own condemnation." Gerald Jampolsky, author of Forgiveness, the Greatest Healer of All, says that love and happiness are inseparable. And try it on. When you're in love, are you not happy? The joy that fills us constantly and consistently lays there. The next week that we're going into is done by Reverend Francione from East Bay Centers for Spiritual Living in Oakland, California, and it's for July 17th. And we see a world of peace and harmony, enfranchisement and justice. She opens with a quote from Holmes, who wrote in 10 Ideas That Made a Difference, "Unity doesn't mean uniformity. Different thoughts and ideas are inherent to the nature of life, and we need this variety, but back of it all, we need a sympathetic understanding of others. Have we kindness for each other? Are we flexible enough to know that everyone does not have to think alike in order to live together harmoniously? Are we able to reach across all differences of opinion to the common ground upon which we all stand?" On justice, Dr. Holmes wrote, "We cannot be born of the Spirit unless we do the will, and the will of Spirit is goodness, peace, mercy, justice, and truth. It is conscious union with God or Spirit." On enfranchisement, Dr. Holmes writes, "The ingenuity of the religious science church, now known as Centers for Spiritual Living, lingers on, particularly in its sense of equity. This denomination was among the first of any in the United States and the world to license and ordain women in its ministry. The equitable aspect wasn't always seamless, though. And finally, the barriers between you and your greater good are not barriers in themselves. They are things of thought. It is because of this that all things are possible to faith." Jesus, the Master Teacher, summed up the whole proposition when he said, "It's done unto you as you believe." Surely if you believe that we are separate from each other, we will manifest more. If you believe in the oneness of life, we will hold that as the truth of our being. The next week comes from Sue Ellen Miller from Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is for July 24th, and we believe in the eternal goodness of life. That's one of the basic principles that we hold to be true in our teaching, that life is goodness itself. Reverend Sue Ellen says there's only one life, the life of God. If it's God, it must be good. Good and bad are labels that we humans use to categorize things, but in reality, everything is God. When we see something as negative or bad, we're looking at it through one lens. We need to shift our perception to see it as good. The only thing between us and our good is our thoughts and our beliefs. I'll share with you that one of Dr. Holmes's greatest quotes, and I'll paraphrase it, is quite simply that we look at life through a keyhole, and therefore we only see what we can see in that one little shape that fits out there. It's time for us to broaden our horizon and broaden the way that we look at the world around us so that we might truly be able to move into a bigger vision, a greater idea, and a greater experience. A quote from this thing called You from Dr. Ernest Holmes. You are part of the universal mind, one with the universal substance. You live, move, and have your being in pure spirit. All the wealth, power, and goodness of this spirit exists at the center of your being. You experience this good in such degree as you accept it, believe it, feel it. And then again from the Science of Mind, the thing that stands between you and your greater good is a thing of thought and nothing else. It's not reality that you must change, but your mental reaction to it. To realize that God is ever present, ever available, is to know that all the wisdom, intelligence, and power of the universe is right where you are. This is why everything in your life depends upon your belief. Why it is done unto you as you believe. Change your belief and you can change the world. And this is the pattern, this is the fashion that we use. And if we follow our principles, we will surely come into connection with a world that is more loving and kind and giving, compassionate than it ever has been before. Moving on in July, and this is written by Reverend Dr. Linda Rapon, and it's for July 31st. We see our communities as being open, receptive, and welcoming of all people, all faiths, and all paths to God. From the Science of Mind textbook, Dr. Holmes writes, the universe is impersonal. It gives to all, it's no respecter of persons, it values each alike, its nature is to impart, ours is to receive. When we stand in the light, we cast a shadow across the pathway of our own experience. Ultimately, we shall see that the universe rests on the shoulders of love, that God is love, and that all the errors of humankind are the result of ignorance of their own true nature. The happy outlook on life is always constructive. The understanding as heart is always filled with sympathy and helpfulness towards all. An evolved soul judges no one, condemns no one, but realizes that all are on the road of experience seeking the same goal, and that each must ultimately find their home in heaven. Dr. Holmes also wrote in Creative Mind and Success, suppose that you wish to draw friends and companions to you, that you wish to enlarge your circle of friendships. This too can all be worked out by law, for everything can be worked out by the same law, the reason being that all is one and that the one becomes the many in expression. There are too many people in the world who are lonesome because they have a sense of separation from people. The thing to do is not to try to unify with people, but with the principle of life itself. Behind all people and things, this is working from the center and not from the circumference. In this one mind are the minds of all people. When you unite your thought with the whole, you will be united with the parts of the whole. The first thing to do then is to realize that life is your friend and companion. Feel the divine companionship. Feel that you are one with all life. Declare that as this thought awakens within your mind, so it awakens within the mind of the whole race. Feel that the world is being drawn to you. Love the world and everyone in it. Include all if you would be included in all. The world seeks strength. Be strong. The world loves love. Embody it. See the good in all people. Let go of all else. People will feel your love and be drawn to it. Love is the greatest power in the universe. It is at the base of all else. It is the cause of all that is. Feel your love to be like a great light, lighting the pathway of the whole world. It will come back to you, bringing so many friends that there will not be time enough to enjoy them all. Become a real friend and you will have many friends. And that's it. Thank you.